You're watching Pulse for the 5th of November, and it's time for some Diablo news. This week's episode is mostly just focused on Diablo 3 Beta Patch 5. Yes, it did in fact hit the servers recently, and it brought with it a lot of changes. Other than that, there are some BlizzCon leftovers to have a look at, there's some pretty amazing artwork, yet another pretty scary looking Diablo 3 Beta speed hack, and more. Let's get started. First up, we are obviously going to have a look at Diablo 3 Beta Patch 5. We've been waiting quite long for this, and I gotta say it was definitely worth it. There are tons of changes, fixes, additions, and other niceties here, and this patch does in fact include the big Demon Hunter makeover that Blizzard promised a little while back. Now let's have a look at the changes from the top. First off, all the characters have been wiped. Pretty much everything's been wiped actually. As part of this process, artisans, gold, and items, including those placed in the auction house or in a shared stash, have also been reset. I guess a couple of people might complain, but you gotta keep in mind that the max level was in fact 13 and it doesn't take that long to get there. And now another huge change is that switching out class skills will now require the use of a new feature known as the Nephilim Altar. The Nephilim Altars do look pretty impressive and are currently located in New Tristram as well as in key locations throughout Act 1. Clicking on an altar will open up the skill UI, allowing both active and passive skills to be selected or exchanged. And another pretty big change, the Cauldron of Jordan is no longer available in beta content. I'm not sure why they did this, but hey, I didn't really use the Cauldron very much anyway. Then in the quest changes, gold rewarded from quests has been significantly reduced. Experience rewarded from quests after level 4 is now based on the number of mobs you'd have to kill to earn the same amount of experience, rather than being a strict percentage of a level. Honestly, those two changes will only really make a difference in the beta. Once we actually start playing through the entire first act or the rest of the game, we won't really even notice them. Then in the skill changes, new passive skills have been added for all classes, and I was pretty shocked to see this happen. I thought we had pretty much seen all the skills in the game already, but hey, I won't complain. We're going to have a look at these when we look at the individual class notes after this. I will say though that all of these don't look that new, but hey, we're going to treat them as new and look at them anyway. Area of effect skills for all classes have had their damage reduced, and single target skills for all classes have had their damage increased. At the moment, while playing the beta, people are mostly just using area of effect spells, but I think that's mainly because most of the mobs that they are fighting are lower levels than their own hero. So I think once we start leveling, things are going to equal out, and we're actually going to start using those single target skills a lot more anyway. And then lastly in the skill changes, all skills are now based off weapon damage. Now the user interface changes. The in-game UI has been updated with general art and usability improvements. I gotta say it's much more than just that. Blizzard have changed a ton of stuff. The entire menu has been redone and the login screen has actually been updated a little bit. There are these cool looking crows flying around there now and lots of other stuff. If you guys and girls are interested in seeing all those changes, I will be having a look at them at the start of my next Diablo 3 playthrough. The first part of that should be up soon after this news episode. Now we're going to move on to the class changes, but I will mention that we're not going to look at every single little change here because, honestly, most of these aren't really worth talking about, and I suppose most of the people that aren't actually playing in the beta wouldn't really care about them right now. First up, the Barbarian changes. The Barbarian Fury generators have received a tune-in pass. Bash, Cleave, and Frenzy now generate more Fury, whereas the other Fury generators now generate less. Then, the new passive skill that Barbarians have access to is called Nerves of Steel. It's unlocked at level 12 and your defense is increased by 25% of your vitality. Pretty cool, very tanky. Now the Demon Hunter. There's a lot of stuff that was changed here. First, the general changes include that maximum hatred has been reduced from 150 to 125. Other big changes include the fact that the order in which skills are awarded has been adjusted for levels 1 to 13. And resource management for the Demon Hunter has been reworked significantly. Skills for the class now fall in 3 categories: Hatred Generators, Hatred Spenders, and Discipline Spenders. If you want to read all those individual skill changes, you're going to have to check the patch notes out below. The new passive skill that Demon Hunter's got is Tactical Advantage, unlocked at level 10, and whenever you use Vault, Smokescreen, or Backflip with Evasive Fire, you gain a 60% movement speed bonus for 2 seconds. Next up is the Monk. All mantras now have a 15-second cooldown and grant a bonus effect for the first 3 seconds after activation. We did hear about this a couple of weeks ago, and it's good to see it finally in the beta. As for the monk passive skills, Transcendence has received a bit of a buff, and it now heals more per point of spirit spent. Now for the Witch Doctor. All Witch Doctor skills now do damage based on your weapon damage and cast at a speed based on your weapon attack speed. So I'm pretty sure the Witch Doctors are going to be happy about that. As for the Witch Doctor passive skills, there's Circle of Life, unlocked at level 12, and whenever an enemy dies within 12 yards, there's a 5% chance that a zombie dog will automatically emerge. Then we've got Jungle Fortitude, which is unlocked at level 10, and it reduces all damage taken by you and your pets by 20%. Now for the Wizard, the order in which skills are awarded from level 6 to 13 has been adjusted. Players will now unlock offensive and defensive spells in an alternating order. And as with the Witch Doctor, all wizard skills now do damage based on your weapon damage and cast at a speed based on your weapon attack speed. The new passive skill for wizards is Critical Mass, unlocked at level 12, and your critical hits reduce the cooldown of your spells by 1 second. There are a couple of interesting changes for followers as well, but I'm not going to be covering all of them. I have to say that most of them are pretty much just there to make the followers work late game. You can see that Blizzard are just shifting things around to try and make followers scale the same way that our characters would, and in turn I suppose make them useful in everything above normal mode. But if you are interested in those follower changes, you can check the full patch notes below. Then there were a couple of general item changes, weapon changes, bug fixes, a few monster changes, and one monster change I found interesting was a new affix that's been added, the Mortar affix. Mortar monsters will lob grenades at enemies outside melee range. That's pretty damn cool. Other interesting changes include that players now start with 5 health potions, health globes now heal over 1.5 seconds rather than 5 seconds, the number of chests, shrines, and other interactable items has been greatly reduced across the entire game. Then in the boss changes, the Skeleton King's whirlwind damage has been increased from 100% to 300%. That's an absolutely huge increase, and I can't wait to fight the Skeleton King again to test that out. One change I didn't see on the patch notes that I definitely noticed was that there's a bunch of new music in the game now, and there are a bunch of new tips that pop up when you actually start playing. But as I mentioned earlier, you can just check my next Diablo 3 beta playthrough out. It's probably going to be with a Demon Hunter, although I said I was doing Barbarian next. The Demon Hunter seems like a lot of fun right now, and I think a lot more people actually want to see it. But remember, pay specific attention to the music. It's really good. But that's about it. There are a couple of other changes that I didn't mention here, but I didn't feel it worth mentioning them. You can, as always, see the full patch notes below, and be sure to let me know what you think about the patch. I honestly can't wait to try those new passive skills out, and to see the new Demon Hunter in action. Next up, though, I will tell you that below I've linked a ton of BlizzCon leftovers. BlizzCon 2011 brought with it a bunch of interviews, both text and video, a lot of articles at a lot of big sites, and tons of other stuff. Honestly, if you want to do a bit of browsing, you can find a lot of cool stuff below. I'm not going to cover all of them individually here because there is just way too much, and a lot of it is news that we've already seen before just from different sources. But hey, it's there and you can have a look if you're interested. Next up, a really cool looking piece of artwork. This piece shows Asmodan and his demonic army advancing from the Ariat crater. It was in fact done by Blizzard artist John Polidara, and I gotta say, he did a good job. Now we've got a full body view of Diablo to have a look at, and this is a little bit weird. Before, in the BlizzCon 2011 shots of Diablo, he did look very much like a she, but in this image, not so much. What do you guys think? Honestly, I like the idea of Diablo being a female in this game, but hey, that might not be the case anymore. I suppose we're gonna have to actually wait till we encounter Diablo in Diablo 3 to find out. I guess that's okay with me. Then before moving on, we got a couple of pieces from the BlizzCon 2011 fan art contest. You may have seen these while watching BlizzCon live, but if you didn't, here they are, and you can find links to the full quality, full size versions below. Now in the last piece of news I'm going to cover, and I'm going to cover this very briefly, here is yet another Diablo 3 run speed hack, and this one is a bit different. It has auto item looting as well. I gotta say, it's not something I'm really happy about, but the fact that they're revealing all their tricks in the beta is probably bad for them. It just gives Blizzard the time that they need to set things up to block these when the game actually launches. Anyway, I thought I'd just bring this to your attention. You can have a look at the video right here on YouTube, and it is pretty disgusting, so be careful. With that done, let's move on to the Diablo 3 Smalls. First up in the Smalls, over at the official site, you can read what a day in the life of a Diablo 3 developer is like. Then read about Diablo 2 patch 1.13d and Diablo 2's ladder season 9. You can go vote for Diablo 3 as one of the most anticipated games of 2012. You can read how Diablo 3 is going to be at Sweden's GameX Expo. Book of Cain has been delayed. The guys over at Diablo Fans have a new manager. And if you want to find out who that is, you're going to have to check that link out below. The Telegraph has picked Sanctuary as their top video game world. There's an interesting post over at WoW Insider that's a WoW player's introduction to Diablo 3, or why they should play Diablo 3 at least. Then you can have a look at the Diablo podcast number 50 and a Diablo 3 machinima video. This is the Gigolo Witch Test, and it's actually pretty good. It was made using Malau 5's machinima tool that we showed off a few weeks ago. Lastly, you can have a look at Purgatory for the 31st of October. There are a couple of pieces of news in that episode that I didn't cover myself, so well worth having a look at. Sadly, that's all I have for you in the Diablo news this week. Remember to check back here soon for my next Diablo 3 beta playthrough. It will in fact be with a Demon Hunter, contrary to what I said before, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, especially with this new patch live. Anyway, remember to like the video, favorite it, share it with your friends, and subscribe. Most importantly, happy Diablo 3 beta patch 5.